There she is. We are recording. So welcome everybody to another episode of Qumulex Radio. I am Josh, as always, is the much smarter, more intelligent, enigmatic, just a glowing individual, Aaron Newman, also my co-pilot and friend, as long as I don't make fun of him too much. He says he'll still be my friend. And we also have a very extra special guest today. We actually have somebody from Qumulex that is willing to join us. We have Luke Policinski, who's one of the leaders of our engineering department. And engineering is a very broad description that plebes like me that don't know technical things will often use. Just take a minute and just maybe explain exactly what your role here is at Qumulex and what it is that you do.
Yeah. I've been around for about 3 years now, and I mainly focus on the cloud architecture. So all the bits and pieces that go from your site to the cloud. So it involves video and getting it up there, make sure recording working and getting all those events up.
No, that's great. So how did you said you've been here about 3 years and I've been here a little over 4. So that sounds about right. It checks out. How did you end up here? What led you to Qumulex?
Yeah, it's kind of a funny story. I first started out as a kind of a PHP developer, and I wanted to learn some Node.js, which is a type of language that we use in the backend now these days. And I was actually a front-end developer at my previous job. I did that because I wanted to learn Node.js. And unfortunately, I was trying to transition into more of the back end of Node.js in particular. And I was promised that job, and sometimes, it doesn't work out that way. You just roll with it. So luckily, Chris, another one of our coworkers, I worked with him before, and he said, Qumulex, this company is pretty awesome. I'm like, all right, I guess I'll check it out and see what's going on. And what was awesome is you guys were using Node.js. So I applied for the job and, got it. And it's been pretty great since then. So pretty fun.
No, I like it. I don't actually know what Node.js is, but that was my nickname in high school. What, for the people like me out there, what is Node.js?
Yeah, Node.js is just another programming language similar to, I'm trying to think of a good example.
Is it like R, like Python? Is it that type of thing? Or?
It is. It's just another language for like C, Python, all that stuff. PHP is another one. It's all the stuff that runs in your computer in bits and pieces that you don't get to see.
Yeah, well, but before Aaron asked, don't expect me to, explain Python or R. I know they exist.
Throwing out terms.
Yeah, that's what I do. That's what I do.
Keep them rolling.
Yeah, that's marketing. That's no, so that's cool. So I actually have a 12-year-old that's going into middle school next year, and he has a lot of elective options. We were actually looking at that last night, and he's trying to decide if his NFL career doesn't take off as expected. What would he do? And it kind of got me thinking. How did you end up where you are? Like, when did you decide you wanted to do? Like, how'd you end up here? Did you just think as a kid, like, I like computers, and one thing led to another, or how do you even get into this field?
Yeah, my journey is pretty interesting because I didn't exactly want to become a programmer. I always had really strong interest in computers and whatnot, but in high school, I didn't take any computer courses. I might have taken one that was pretty generic and didn't learn how a computer works and whatnot. But in college, I was working at a food court of all places. And I don't know if anybody's ever worked in food industry before, but it's hard, very hard.
Looks like it.
So I actually ran into a buddy of mine that worked at, I went to Purdue, by the way. And
oh, that helps.
So yeah, I ran into a friend that was an engineer, of course, and he worked at a company that's inside Purdue called ResNet, and essentially it stands for Residential Network that's on Purdue. And I was actually just doing support desk, and I was taking phone calls, dealing with troubleshooting and whatnot. Again, I kind of ran into the thing. I don't think this is for me. But they had another division within that company that did programming. And luckily, they gave me a chance to say, like, here, why don't you take this programming language, and this was PHP at the time, and start developing and figure out if you like it or not. And that really jump-started my career. From then on, I knew what I wanted to do, and that was definitely programming. So kind of funny how it all worked out. I graduated with an industrial engineering degree, not CS. But you have to finish college at some point.
So did you do the industrial engineering degree first and
Yes.
then ended up in the food court trying to pay your student loans back at
luckily enough, no, it was during all my undergrad.
Okay.
But I took a few extra laps for undergrad, which,
nice.
Sometimes it's worthwhile. And luckily in my case, I was lucky enough it was a good idea.
So Purdue is very, well liked by some of our founders. Did that assist you in landing the big gig at Qumulex?
I'm not sure. You'll have to ask them.
So obviously you are local. I mean, you live right there in Indy, near the office. So
yeah, I'm able to go in the office anytime. Sometimes they take up on the offer, sometimes they don't. Luckily, we're a pretty well remote hybrid environment, and I mean, I have a door sitting right next to me right now that I can work with, and cameras. It's just a lot of fun working with all these different devices that I had no idea existed before.
No question. So you mad at Chris now that he talked you into coming here? Did it all work out for you? Or
hey, sometimes yeah, but no. Like 99% of the time, I'm living life, and it's great.
I'll be honest with you. I remember when I started here for the first few months, actually, right till the pandemic happened. I was actually traveling to Indy each week and working in the office. So I remember I think I remember when Chris started, not long after all of that. And so I actually didn't know that you two were friends or knew each other already. So a lot of things make sense right now. I'm just going to say a lot of things make sense.
Luckily, we worked with each other before, so we kind of knew how our dynamic worked. He was the front end, I was the back end. And so it was really nice to come into an environment where I kind of knew how I was going to fit and interact with the team when I came in.
Yes. I mean, do you think, go ahead, Aaron, please.
So just kind of going back to Qumulex and like kind of you coming in, was it a bit of a challenge, learning what we do in the security industry? And like you said, you got a door sitting next to you and you had all these devices you had no idea of. Like what was that like, kind of transitioning your skill set into this security application?
I've never heard so many acronyms in my life. Starting off, like that is probably the hardest part. Was the security industry is well established. It has their ground rules, and me coming in knowing none of that, I'm kind of shifting. Sometimes I may go too far, sometimes not enough, but a lot of times I push the boundaries of what Qumulex is doing and how we interpret it, how the security industry we think should work. Because I'm a residential person. I don't own a business or anything like that. So I think in terms of residential, so that could be problematic sometimes. So I definitely have to think of industrial usage and figuring out how to make things work. But yeah, cameras, I mean, doors is way more complicated than anybody would imagine. People just think you go scan a door and you're in, but it's more like that's the first defense. Then you have 50 other knobs that you can touch. And even right now, I'm looking at my door and it's like, sometimes it gets so complicated. You got to look at the documentation and figure out how it all works.
I think definitely with access control, there's way more customization versus like the video surveillance side of it. Mm-hmm. I think in video surveillance, it's more, how much you're going to store for how long, what kind of cameras are going to work best for the application. I mean, it can definitely get complex, but access control to me almost feels like, going to the Lego store, everything's build your own kit. I mean, there's probably some things that are probably most common, but I wonder how many access control installations exist that are truly identical outside of a, same organization that has a templated approach. I mean, but something that's interesting to me, just like as the product manager here, and I get to kind of interface with everybody. I think one of the cool things here is that we have people like Luke who have all this technical knowledge, not from the industry, that bring fresh ideas to a pretty well established group of people that do know the industry really well. So I feel like we have this great mix of both. So we're not kind of stuck in just the old ways of thinking. You have people like Luke, and I believe Chris was not from the industry either. So you guys come in and you're like, well, there's this whole other way that we could do these things. And like, you're kind of breaking it down by not just what has always happened before, but you're just kind of looking at, well, what's really going on behind the scenes here? And how do I build this better and make this more efficient? And, you guys have come up with some features and some things that, weren't really standard in our industry before, which I think is really nice. So I think it's a great thing. And
for our partners and our customers listening, just so they know, Luke is responsible for our rules engine, which, I still advocate for that. It's a very robust rules engine. Like I can't think, there are products that can do a lot, but I mean, I have yet to find something that we can't do with our rules engine. So again, I think exactly like Josh said, Luke's fresh perspective, bringing that in, it's given us a competitive edge for sure. Yeah.
Because I think in a situation like that, Luke, I think somebody would have said, well, this is, don't want to bring up previous ventures for our founders, but they may go back to that last one and say, well, this is what we did there. And that was pretty fine for everybody. And in a lot of cases, that's right. But Luke's able to come along and say, well, here's a whole other way I can do this. And like our first iteration of the rules engine was very deep, and just continues to get better. So, I mean, I think that's a great example, of how we have in like both the industry veterans plus people that know what the heck they're doing, but they're not coming from this industry and they have a whole different set of ideas. I think that's how innovation happens.
Yeah, the rules engine is by far the most advanced probably of our whole tech stack. It's very powerful. If people have used the UI, they understand we have all the capabilities, and we're always trying to make it better. I know Eric's done a lot of deep diving and understanding how the rules engine and how powerful it is, and hopefully a new feature within, I won't say a time frame, but we're trying to generate templates so for people just to point and click for like motion events. You want an email. Well, sometimes setting up those rules is a little cumbersome, but the idea is to make it as flexible as possible and give you guys the best rules engine that we can.
Yeah, no, it's been great. We love it. Customers love it. Partners love it. So yeah, no, keep up the great work. That's awesome.
So go on. Go ahead.
I was going to say another kind of thing that people don't realize is we have an auth system that deals with all our auth, and getting that to work from cloud to your gateway was a challenge. I think that's truly unique in our space. I don't think anybody does it like that, and if they try, to be very difficult for them to do. So we're pretty happy with how we've set that up, and more improvements are coming in the future, and I hope we get those out soon so everybody can take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And kind of just to catch up our audience who might not know, Luke has also been instrumental in working out, our replication. So we have a database in the cloud, we have a database at the edge, and ensuring that those two are synced up is basically what allows us, in a nutshell, kind of stepping back a little bit, it's what allows us to do our offline access and, like Luke said, our authentication. So it's been instrumental, and again, it's another competitive advantage of ours. We have the ability to still view live and recorded video and make command and control from a gateway. Obviously I have to be on site, local to that gateway, but I can, still have full access of my site even without an internet connection. And that's an amazing feature. And yes, no, thank you for that. That's one that I don't think is talked enough about. Maybe this podcast will help that.
Yeah, replication is very cool in itself. It's one of those things where when people try to replicate what we do, it's almost near impossible. We've built the system designed to make things easy for us to know how to sync things, for how you guys to view it, permissions, groups, all that stuff is designed for this type of architecture. So we're pretty happy with all the results that have come because of the architecture we set up.
On that note, like, we've come up, collectively as a team, you individually, there have been some great ideas that have been kind of worked into the product. From your perspective, how do you keep up with, because you kind of have it from two fronts. You have the security side, and then you have, obviously your technical capability, what you can do with databases and J-Node, I'm sorry. How do you keep up with these industry trends? Like what is your go-to source of knowledge, and how do you kind of keep up with all that?
That's a broad question because it's very difficult to keep up with all of it.
Sure.
So I wouldn't say there's one source. I do keep up with a lot of some of the more the techie sites, like I'll use Reddit. Twitter's been actually pretty good about having a developer following. So I'll follow a lot of developers. Security is always in the front of my mind. So I follow it's called GitHub, and they have a security type thing that can scan your packages and understand if there's any security vulnerabilities to update.
So cybersecurity in that case, right?
In that case, yeah. So there's just there's a lot of methods, and it's really choosing what you like to do. I'm a big reader, so I'll read a lot of news articles that come across, and I'm able to subscribe to that type of thing. But yeah, keeping up in general with tech is very difficult. And how I like to work is if I like to use Qumulex, right? I use it at home, so I get to, like, if I want to build a feature, it's because I want to use it at home. Even though we're commercial, we're striving to make it easy for anybody. We want residentials to come and say, "Oh, Qumulex is easy to use. I don't need to be a rocket scientist to use this application." So that's how I think of it. Is simplicity is an art, and it's not always as straightforward as what people think.
And it's challenging because you want it to both be simple, and people really do crave that process. But I think some of the examples of cloud-based types of solutions, not even necessarily just in our industry, but just initially when all this came out, of course, they were very new. So of course they're very simple. They probably didn't even do a whole lot, but people like that simplicity. But now as cloud is maturing, we're having to layer in and want to, lots of additional capability and features and integration and all of these things. So that's I don't know if people really appreciate the challenge there, that customers really want two things that on the surface seem diametrically opposed because they want it to be super simple and easy. Yet I need to do all these things, especially with the access control, like we said, because there's just so much broad variety of configurations and devices that you need to utilize. And how do you deal with that? Or is that a Chris problem? Is that Chris's issue?
No, it's definitely both our problems. Unfortunately, I wish it was just Chris's problem, but there's a lot of how the data flows. We have to be careful. For instance, the Flow engine, we realize the Flow engine has a lot of features, and this is a great example of, like, we present them with a limited number of things through the Rules engine. Aaron, on the other hand, has access to an advanced mode where he gets to, like, almost look at the code. So he's able to put all these extra features in. If somebody says, "I really need this, can you do it?" And Aaron comes to me and says, "Can we do this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we can do this." And we knock it out and get it done. Another great example is our Mercury integration. I don't know if everybody has Mercury, but Mercury's tough. There's a lot of options, a lot of flexibility, and I think our UI does a pretty good job of navigating you through, selecting which child boards, getting those all configured, and making sure it's exactly what you need. Because as Josh said earlier, it's like there's no one access control system that's the same. There just isn't. Everybody has unique needs, and I think we do a really good job of making that possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
how do you see, our product evolving? I mean, it's pretty spectacular right now. I mean, as far as maybe trends and what have you, because I mean, the push from my perspective, just to kind of illustrate this a little bit and give you some context, it's been like a mobile push to get kind of everybody away from a PC, from a thick client, get them mobile, get them, on their tablet, their, Android, their iOS device. From your perspective, what do you kind of see trending? What's kind of next?
Yeah, I think there's a lot trending. And we've had a lot of discussions internally that are, mostly informal, just kind of chatting. And again, I'm a residential person. So like I would love to have a native app on my phone that I could get rich notifications just for viewing doors, viewing cameras. That's my opinion, but we have a lot of things to do. So with the client, Chris has been doing a great job of bringing it up to the modern world, and I think people can see it. It just takes a lot of time, so we're working on getting all these features packed into the application themselves. Kind of a cool feature, I think I can say this, is Chris has added, like on Android phones, like adding a haptic feedback when you press the unlock button now, and possibly adding a sound. Like that's the stuff we're coming up with, and it's really cool to see the web catching up to native apps. So we'll see what Apple and Android lets us do, because we're kind of under their influence of how much tech can we put in a PWA versus a native app. And so far, we've done a great job of, I think, showing how a PWA can be really close to an app experience.
Yeah,
I think we see more and more that's the way the world is going. I think people expect things to be a web app versus a thick client that you got to buy all these separate licenses for, and they only work on certain devices. And I mean, I think our engineering team took a really smart approach, thinking ahead and saying, okay, how do we make sure, since this is a service that should be able to continue on for the life of somebody's building, if they would like, they should be able to work with whatever's out there and not be limited. And those of us who were integrators or in IT in the past, or my unfortunate case, both, we used to always have to go through these horrible forklift upgrades, just based on the changing technology. I mean, I'm old enough to remember having a BlackBerry server, for example. So, I think it's the way the world's going, and I think it makes sense that, that this approach is going to catch up. I think, again, talking about innovation, as an observer, it seems like that's where the innovation really is at this point.
Yeah.
All right. So we got to ask you one deep, dark, personal question. And you're not allowed to hang up. You work here. You're not a normal guest. You can't just run away. All right. So just clench your teeth and be ready, because here I come.
All right.
Are the Penguins even going to make the playoffs?
Oh, geez.
I mean, are we even going to make it?
No, we're not. It's been pretty dismal. 30 games left. We're 10 points off from being even in the wild card. So,
and Sid's playing great.
Playing great. Playing like he's 17.
He's not a problem. I don't understand what's going to take.
It's been fun to watch, though.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a great player, and he's a future Hall of Famer. You just know that type of person and the work that I think he puts in to still be playing it. He's 37, and he's playing at the level he is.
Yeah,
it's
36,
crazy.
I think, almost 37. I think the guys around him think he's got 5-6 years left at that level, possibly. Which hockey seems like people, you smash your face in the boards all that much. I mean, it seems like people can play a lot longer, maybe, than other sports. But
yeah,
I mean, he's been amazing. I mean, what do you think? Is Gino still?
I think he's struggling a little bit. He's struggling. I think he's
maybe
learning
at the end
to catch up a little bit and figuring out where he belongs.
Yeah.
I think he'll find it, but I think he's got to find it real quick to make us in the playoffs.
Yeah. What do you think? Is anything left to Flower? Is he a backup anywhere now, or is he just done?
I think he's done. I don't know if you saw the ceremony, but it was eye-tearing. It was very cool to see and watch. So if you haven't watched it, go watch that. pretty cool to see.
Oh, well, I will forever be angry at the NHL. I'm glad Vegas got a team, but why they made a rule that we can only protect one goalie? I mean, I think we could have 3, 4 in a row if we had both.
I agree.
Terrible.
Especially since we got rid of, was it not Jari? Jari's still there. I forget the other J. He doesn't exist in my mind, apparently.
No, it's about the one we sent to Ottawa. He who shall not be named. He didn't work out. I think he benefited from the dual goalie approach too, honestly.
Yeah.
I think they played well together, but NHL, you owe us something for that. That was very unfair. But on that great disappointment, this was overall a very great episode. So I'm really glad, Luke, that you're able to come on. I'm really glad that we're talking to an engineering person. So Aaron was allowed to speak more because he can ask intelligent questions because he has knowledge. Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate
it. Good luck. I know you're working on our update. It's going to go out here in the next week or so. Getting that finalized and QA'd and all that, but good luck on all that. And for everybody else, we'll be back and we'll see you next week with our next episode. And until then, peace.